I'm in a fog.
Same here.
You too, huh? And by fog, we do not mean hangover. I want to make that clear.
Me neither.
We are in a literal fog here in Pinellas County.
And I didn't set it up. Oh, man.
So we'll just call this par.
Oh, my goodness. Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, my friends. God's blessing upon you. Let's praise the Lord together, my friends. We have all awakened in God's shelter. Now we've come to praise His name together. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good
My friend,
my friend.
sing Hosanna,
Hosanna.
hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Allahu Akbar, Ya Allah. In the sanctuary of our Lord's protection, and the stronghold of our Lord's defense. With His love, our spirits are illumined as we glorify His name. Our hearts are blessed. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. My friend.
My friend.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My friend.
My friend.
Good morning. Good morning. I'd like to say that was a malfunction of the drummer, but that was a malfunction of the human that's supposed to be working the drum machine, me. Yeah, so once I heard that switch, I said, okay, we'll just finish without the drum. But good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year to everyone out there. Good morning, Andy and Kabiz and Farah and Gilbert and Husham. Happy New Year, Daryl.
Happy New Year.
How you doing?
Very good, sir.
Things are good? Good.
And Happy New Year to all of you out there.
I don't think I said Happy
Thank
New Year,
you.
Jeremiah. So Happy New Year, Jeremiah, too. Yeah, and everyone out there in Facebook land, whether you're seeing this in real time or in our, when it's, you clicked on it and it's restreaming or whatever the right word is. I don't even know anymore. But Happy New Year to you too. And, we were discussing whether or not we should even be doing this today. Because we were thinking that, well, tell them what you were thinking, Daryl. I'm not going to try and speak.
Well, I was just thinking because it's a holiday that we might not have that much of an audience today, but I'm glad to see that we do have.
Yeah. And nothing.
It's a great way to start a new year.
Exactly. There you go. Great way to start a new year. And my throat's kind of bothering me a little bit, so I'm eating a lozenge here. So if you'll excuse that, please. Now, today is a special day.
It is.
Of course, it's New Year's Day. That makes it special. But the other thing that makes it special is today we're starting a new book.
We're starting a new book.
We're starting a new book. And this is that book. Now, we talked about this the last time we were on. And we have reached an agreement that we will do this book, but I will again voice my reservation. Because this book is first of all, I do want to say the message is huge. The message is so important and so relevant. It is simply that it is written in extremely complex language. And so we're going to be, when we were reading Advent of Divine Justice, we'd have to stop sometime and define some words or kind of look a little deeper into some terms or a phrase here and there. We're going to be doing that on steroids with this particular book. But again, it is so important because it's so relevant. This is a letter. Actually, it's another letter. Advent of Divine Justice. What's a letter? This is a letter. But this letter was not written by Shoghi Effendi.
This was by the Universal House of Justice.
By the Universal House of Justice. And Daryl, do you think you want to take a moment and tell people about the Universal House of Justice? I mean, who is or what is the Universal House of Justice?
Well, the Universal House of Justice, in short terms, is the supreme administrative body for the Baha'i faith.
Yes.
That's the short definition.
And one of the reasons one of the reasons that I point out that while we don't have ministers, it doesn't mean that we don't have a governing body. I mean, we have a very well organized governing body, and at the top of that governing body is the Universal House of Justice. But the Universal House of Justice, back in 2005, felt that it was necessary. And when I say the Universal House of Justice, we should also point out it's made up of nine members that are, that are chosen in a worldwide global election from all Baha'is. But they felt it was necessary to write a letter at that time to all of the various leaders, I should say, various world leaders. Some were religious leaders, some were governmental leaders. And this is that letter. Okay. I am right in saying
That's
that,
right.
Okay. This is not a different version. This is the actual letter. And that's one of the reasons. I mean, this was intended for some pretty highly placed people. And I think that kind of explains some of the language. But to point out why it ended up in book form and why it was dispersed to Baha'is and not just global leaders, I think this foreword, which at first I questioned, should we read the foreword? Daryl wisely felt we should.
Excuse me. There's something else that you might want to read first. You haven't once mentioned the exact name of the book, of the letter.
Right.
We're not going to do that. That's a good idea. That's a major oversight on our part. Yes. You want to do that, Daryl?
Well, thank you, Andy. The name of this particular letter is One Common Faith, and it is it's one common faith because this is not just about like the Advent of Divine Justice was to the Baha'is of North America. This is to the leaders of the world.
Absolutely.
So it's a treatise to them about the fact that we all enjoy this one common faith.
I'm glad you pointed. Thank you, Andy, because I think that was one heck of a build-up for without giving a title, wasn't it? But yes, one common faith. So we're going to go ahead and start reading this, and I may be stopping
Let's do a
Daryl.
prayer first.
You know what? You're right. We haven't even said the prayer yet. Did I say that I had some reservations? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, boy. This is a prayer from Baha'u'llah. And even on this wonderful, wonderful New Year's Day, I think this is still a prayer that needs to be said that has nothing to do with joy. Lauded be thy name, O Lord my God. Thou seest how thy servants have everywhere been compassed with tribulations, how their adversaries have all risen up against them and grievously wronged them. Thy glory beareth me witness. Were all the wicked doers of the earth to band themselves against us, and to cast us into a fire such as no man hath kindled, they would be powerless to distract our gaze from the horizon of thy name, the most exalted, the most high, and would fail to turn aside our hearts from the seat of thine effulgent glory. I swear by thy might, the arrows that transfix us in thy path are the ornaments of our temples, and the spears which pierce us in our love for thee are as silk unto our bodies. By the glory of thy might, nothing whatsoever can beseem thy servants except what the pen of thine irrevocable decree hath traced in this priceless and exalted tablet. All praise be to thyself at all times and under all conditions. Thou art verily the God of knowledge and wisdom. And again, this is a prayer by Baha'u'llah. I like that prayer. I don't think I've ever read a prayer of Baha'u'llah's or Abdullah's that I didn't like, but there are some that just really resonate. So I feel that's one of them. But we do need to go ahead and get going, don't we? Get started. So Daryl, if you'd please be so kind. And this is the forward to this book, One Common Faith.
Yeah, we're going to jump into the forward here because it really is a great introduction to what's going to follow. And we may only get through the forward today. But
Yeah,
hey,
I think so.
That's okay.
So.
At Rizwan 2002, we addressed an open letter to the world's religious leaders. Our action arose out of awareness that the disease of sectarian hatreds, if not decisively checked, threatens harrowing consequences that will leave few areas of the world unaffected. The letter acknowledged with appreciation the achievements of the interfaith movement, to which Baha'is have sought to contribute since an early point in the movement's emergence. Nevertheless, we felt we must be forthright in saying that if the religious crisis is to be addressed as seriously as is occurring with respect to other prejudices afflicting mankind, organized religion must find within itself a comparable courage to rise above fixed conceptions inherited from a distant past.
Okay, that's your first stop right there. Fixed conceptions inherited from a distant past. What do you think they're referring to there?
Well, they're talking about traditional religion and how we get locked into certain preconceived notions about what the world is or should be.
Okay. Prejudices, preconceived notions. Yeah. Fixed conceptions. I thought that was a very nice way of saying that. Fixed conceptions inherited from a distant past. I shouldn't say all, but many of the traditions that we just kind of follow and accept. Okay.
Above all, we expressed our conviction that the time has come when religious leadership must face honestly and without further evasion the implications of the truth that God is one, and that beyond all diversity of cultural expression and human interpretation, religion is likewise one. It was intimations of this truth that originally inspired the interfaith movement and that have sustained it through the vicissitudes of the past 100 years.
I got to admit, I had to look up vicissitudes. How many times have we read that word? I've read it a million, not maybe not a million times, many times. Thought I knew what it meant. And you kind of do, and you probably do. But just to be clear, a vicissitude or vicissitudes are, or a vicissitude, shall we say, is an unwelcome change of fortune. Not just a change of fortune. I think that's kind of implied. We kind of get that in the context. But it's an unwelcome change of fortune. So when we read that sentence, it was intimations of this truth that originally inspired the interfaith movement and that have sustained it through the unwelcome changes of fortune, the vicissitudes of the past 100 years. So there have been some
Ups and downs.
Yeah.
Far from challenging the validity of any of the great revealed faiths, the principle has the capacity to ensure that their continuing relevance. Far from challenging the validity of any of the great revealed faiths, the principle has the capacity to ensure their continuing relevance. In order to exert its influence, however, recognition of this reality must operate at the heart of religious discourse. And it was with this in mind that we felt that our letter should be explicit in articulating it. Response has been encouraging. Baha'i institutions throughout the world ensured that thousands of copies of the document were delivered to influential figures in major faith communities. That says that they sent it out to a lot of different folks who were influential in religious faith communities. While it was perhaps not surprising that the message it contained was dismissed out of hand in a few circles, Baha'is report that in general, they were warmly welcomed. Particularly affecting has been the obvious sincerity of many recipients distressed over the failure of religious institutions to assist humanity in dealing with the challenges whose essential nature is spiritual and moral.
I think it's good to point out at this time that, again, this letter was written in 2005. It was only 17 years ago. But I'm looking at this phrase, many recipients distress, or the sincerity of many recipients distress over the failure of religious institutions to assist humanity in dealing with challenges whose essential nature is spiritual and moral. It is, I think, this failure of religious institutions to assist humanity in dealing with these challenges that has so many people leaving religion.
It does.
Especially young people. There are projections, I just recently read one, that by 2070, at least in the United States, the majority of people who are today young people, the majority of them will not claim any faith and will have raised their children having no affiliation with religion whatsoever.
Sure.
And when you think about, what possibilities some of the outcomes can come of that, I'm sure there are people that will say, positive, that will see a positive outcomes. But in the context of, when you look at that, to assist humanity in dealing with challenges whose essential nature is spiritual and moral, how are we going to deal with those issues outside of the context of faith and religion? Yeah.
Well, I think your point is that so many of not just the followers of religions, but so many of the people who are leaders in religions find it very frustrating.
Oh yeah.
To continue to deal with issues that very often they don't find solutions for.
Exactly.
And the fact that they don't find solutions is extremely frustrating to them. So. I'll go on. Discussions have turned readily to the need for fundamental change in the way believing masses of humankind relate to one another. And in a significant number of instances, those receiving the letter have been moved to reproduce and distribute it to other clerics in their respective traditions. We feel hopeful that our initiative may serve as a catalyst, opening the way to new understanding of religion's purpose, a new understanding of religion's purpose.
And I think when they're saying religion's purpose, it obviously implies that religion has a purpose. And I think for a lot of people today, that's what they are missing, or at least failing to see, is the purpose of religion in the context of, of today's world.
Right. However rapidly or slowly this change occurs, the concern of Baha'is must be with their own responsibility in the matter. The task of ensuring that his message is engaged by people everywhere is one that Baha'u'llah has laid primarily on the shoulders of those who have recognized him. This, of course, has been the work that the Baha'i community has been pursuing throughout the history of the faith, but the accelerating breakdown in social order calls out desperately for the religious spirit to be freed from the shackles that have so far prevented it from bringing to bear the healing influence of which it is capable.
Mm.
If they are to respond to the need, Baha'is must draw on a deep understanding of the process by which humanity's spiritual life evolves. Baha'u'llah's writings provide insights that can help to elevate discussions of religious issues above sectarian and transient considerations. The responsibility to avail oneself of this spiritual resource is inseparable from the gift of faith itself.
Yeah, why am I acting like that? There's a reason. First of all, I look at the beginning of that paragraph. If they are to respond to the need, Baha'is must draw on a deep understanding of the process by which humanity's spiritual life evolves. I think, we look so much to tradition in relation to religion that a lot of times we expect that it should never change. That the way we practice religion, or even the way we interpret, spiritual writings, certainly there's got to be a standard. But when I look at that phrase, the process by which humanity's spiritual life evolves, once again, I think there's an implication there that yes, spiritual life does indeed evolve. It's a part of cultural and societal revolution. And it points out further that Baha'u'llah's writings provide insights that can help to elevate discussion of religious issues above sectarian and transient considerations. We all know what the sectarian stuff is, the different sects and so forth. But even the things that are more specific to a particular age or time or a particular decade, all of a sudden people are up in arms about certain conditions that are prevailing at that time. And when those I'm thinking about, let's go all the way back to the beginning of the double aughts, shall we say. Well, let's go back to 9/11. All of a sudden there was this huge explosion of people going back to, at least in the U.S., going back to faith, going back to religion. Give it a little time, that dissipated.
Yeah,
they were gone. And so, here we can see that Baha'u'llah's writings provide insight that can help to elevate discussion of religious issues above sectarian, again, those different sects and religions, and transient considerations. When things change, when, what seems like cataclysmic events occur, or when things seem to be going well. Throughout all of those things, there should be this thread that is constant, again, and something that helps us to, shall we say, digest and deal with the changes of the day. And again, what we're saying here is Baha'u'llah's writings provide insight that can help us talk about these things, that can help to elevate discussion of religious issues above sectarian and transient considerations. Okay, I'm done.
the responsibility, and that's important here,
Yes.
the responsibility to avail oneself of this spiritual resource is inseparable from the gift of faith itself. Religious fanaticism and hatred, Baha'u'llah warns, are a world-devouring fire. Religious fanaticism and hatred, Baha'u'llah warns, are a world-devouring fire whose violence none can quench. The hand of divine power can alone deliver mankind from this desolating affliction. Far from feeling unsupported in their efforts to respond, Baha'is will come increasingly to appreciate that the cause that they serve represents the arrowhead of an awakening taking place among people everywhere, regardless of religious background, and indeed among many with no religious leaning.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there, Daryl. I got to go back. We already read this, but Baha'is must draw on a deep understanding of the process by which humanity's spiritual life evolves. Baha'u'llah's writings provide insight that can help to elevate discussion of religious issues above sectarian and transient considerations. And as you vocally emphasize, the responsibility to avail oneself of this spiritual resource. What is the spiritual resource? Baha'u'llah's writings. Baha'u'llah's writings are a spiritual resource, but it is the responsibility of the individual. You call yourself a person of faith. The responsibility to avail oneself of this spiritual resource is inseparable from the gift of faith itself.
Right.
You consider yourself a person of faith. The idea that, we've talked about this in the past, some people just have their faith is just be nice.
Sure.
There are enough memes online, on social media about that, just be nice. But and certainly people of faith, we certainly should be nice.
Right.
But we also need a source of guidance.
Absolutely.
And we can look at older texts and we have to face the fact that while certain things are eternally relevant, there are some things that are simply meant for the time that they were revealed.
Right.
And Baha'is, we look at that as, there are eternal spiritual laws, but then there are also social laws, or I'm using the term in this case, social guidance, that is meant for that time. And the same is for this day. There is guidance to help us spiritually today that is meant for today, but it is our responsibility to the extent that we can to avail ourselves of that guidance. It's available, but the responsibility to avail oneself of this spiritual resource, Baha'u'llah's writings, is inseparable from the gift of faith itself. I just feel like that needed emphasizing.
Sure. Reflection on the challenge has prompted us to commission the commentary that follows. One Common Faith, prepared under supervision, reviews relevant passages from both the writings of Baha'u'llah and the scriptures of other faiths against the background of contemporary crisis. We commend it to the thoughtful study of the friends. Universal House of Justice.
Now, I know we said we were only going to read the forward today. It's 10:30. We do have time for a song. I guess this would be a good time. And maybe we can read just a little bit of this afterwards. Yeah. And as you can see, I changed my mind about the song. I only hope I hit the right button this time. That's not right. That is not right. That doesn't feel right.
So
Hang on, folks.
Do it without.
It's overpowering.
It is too loud.
Yeah.
See what I said? Did I not say? I'll tell you what. The gray button needs to come down. Or do you mean the drums, Andy? Or just me?
the drums.
Oh. I can't get anyone to agree with me. This is crazy. I was just working on this morning. Now we got it. Sun is rising on a new day, shedding light across the land. The Father's showing us the right way to take his love to all of man. But some keep fighting, some keep killing, shedding blood around the world. But keep believing, keep on praying. One day God's kingdom will be unfurled. 'Cause all we want is peace high on every mountain, peace down in every valley, flowing like a river man never sees. All we want is peace. Hear the sounds of children crying, hear the mothers and the fathers weep. See them bury their sons and daughters. See their pain that goes so deep. How'd we ever come to this place? We all know a better way. We can put a smile on God's face and start a brand new day. 'Cause all we want is peace high on every mountain, peace down in every valley, flowing like a river man never sees. All we want is peace, red, yellow, brown, black and white, father, mother, sister, brother, rich and poor, captive and free. All we want is peace for every Muslim, every Christian, every Jew and Zoroastrian, for every Buddhist, Baha'i and Hindu, every child of God. There's a way we can live as one. Take every rocket, every rifle, every weapon and melt them down. Then build the plowshares to feed the hungry, till no more hunger can be found. 'Cause all we want is peace high on every mountain, peace down in every valley, flowing like a river may it never cease. All we want is peace. 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 I barely made it through. I said I had a little tickle in my throat. man, it was right there. It was right there. Excuse me.
All right.
Well, we had said that we were going to probably just read the foreword, but we do have a few minutes. You think we should start, or? I think we should.
Okay.
So you've heard the foreword. This is how this letter starts. There is every reason for confidence that the period of history now opening, you got to remember this was in 2005, that the period of history now opening will be far more receptive to efforts to spread Baha'u'llah's message than was the case in the century just ended. All the signs indicate that a sea change in human consciousness is underway. And I had to look up sea change. I don't know what you do. A sea change, S-E-A, sea change, a profound or notable transformation. So all the signs indicate that a sea change, a profound or notable transformation in human consciousness is underway. They don't say it's a good or bad transformation. They just say profound, a sea change. Early in the 20th century, a materialistic interpretation of reality had consolidated itself so completely as to become the dominant world faith. So while we have all of these other known world religions, the dominant world faith, starting in the 20th century, was materialism. Early in the 20th century, a materialistic interpretation of reality had consolidated itself so completely as to become the dominant world faith insofar as the direction of society was concerned. In the process, the civilizing of human nature had been violently wrenched out of the orbit it had followed for millennia. For many in the West, the divine authority that had functioned as the focal center of guidance, and we should point out that the word divine is capitalized, that's a reference to God. For many in the West, the divine authority that had functioned as the focal center of guidance, however diverse the interpretation of its nature, seemed simply to have dissolved and vanished. In large measure, the individual was left free to maintain whatever relationship he believed connected his life to a world transcending material existence. So again, the emphasis was now on the individual's choices. The individual was left to maintain whatever relationship he believed connected his life to a world transcending material existence. But society as a whole proceeded with growing confidence to sever dependence on a conception of the universe that was judged to be at best a fiction and at worst an opiate, in either case inhibiting progress. I think that needs reiterating. Society as a whole proceeded with a growing confidence to sever dependence on a conception of the universe that was judged to be at best a fiction. That's their way of saying God is just something people made up. And at worst, an opiate, something that people depend on just to feel good. In either case, they had judged to be at best a fiction and at worst an opiate, in either case, inhibiting progress. Progress of what? Progress of humanity. Humanity had taken its destiny into its own hands. It has solved through rational experimentation and discourse. So people were given to believe all of the fundamental issues related to human governance and development. It had solved through rational experimentation and discourse all of the fundamental issues related to human governance and development. They solved all the problems.
Or at least they thought they had.
There, something I wanted to add about one of the words that you just had read,
Please.
and that is the word opiate.
Yes.
Opiate does indeed do the thing that you mentioned a while ago to help you feel good, but it does so in a way that is so life limiting that you that
Exactly.
that what you are living is something really disconnected with reality and keeps you from realizing your potential.
That's a great, I'm glad you pointed that out, Andy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And so I guess if you're someone who looks at faith in that way, and you have that viewpoint, and you view people of faith as being, falling within that description, why would you want it?
Yeah.
Why would you want it?
Well, we both know because it's not real.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess maybe, yeah.
That's a good place
We better
for
go
us
ahead
to-
and stop there. Wow.
So now you know why we have chosen this particular book, because it is, to me, a logical next step after the advent of divine justice, because this goes out to the entire world. It's not just to the Baha'is of North America. This goes out to the entire world, to the religious leaders of the entire world. And not just to religious leaders, but to government leaders as well.
And I do think it's good that they're, giving us some kind of a historical perspective
Exactly.
on how we got to, at least how we got to 2005. And as we read through this, you'll see that, many of the things that were pointed out, that are pointed out in this treatise, were quite visionary. And at this time, as always, we'd like to go ahead and allow this is that time that we have anyone who would choose to offer up a prayer or a psalm or reading of your choice. This is that time. And as always, we like to start with our Camby's moment, followed by our Andy moment. So, Camby's, do you have something to share with us today?
Sure. Thy name is my healing, O my God, and remembrance of thee is my remedy. Nearness to thee is my hope, and love for thee is my companion. Thy mercy to me is my healing and my succor in both this world and the world to come. Thou verily art the all-bountiful, the all-knowing, the all-wise.
Thank you, Camby's. Andy, do you have something you'd like to share with us today?
God is sufficient unto me. He verily is the all-sufficing. In trusting trust, in him let the trusting trust. God is sufficient unto me. He verily is the all-sufficing. In
Thank you, Andy. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to share?
O son of utterance, thou art my stronghold. Enter therein that thou mayest abide in safety. My love is in thee, know it, that thou mayest find me near unto thee. Baha'u'llah.
Thank you, Farah.
O thou compassionate Lord, thou who art generous and able, we are servants of thine, sheltered beneath thy providence. Cast thy glance of favor upon us. Give light to our eyes, hearing to our ears, and understanding and love to our hearts. Render our souls joyous and happy through thy glad tidings. O Lord, point out to us the pathway of thy kingdom and resuscitate all of us through the breaths of the Holy Spirit. Bestow upon us life everlasting and confer upon us never-ending honor. Unify mankind and illumine the world of humanity. May we all follow thy pathway, long for thy good pleasure, and seek the mysteries of thy kingdom. O God, unite us and connect our hearts with thy indissoluble bond. Verily, thou art the giver, thou art the kind one, and thou art the Almighty.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to share? Well, as some of you may know, or maybe you don't, but we got the sad news just a few days ago that our beloved Geeti and Farhad, who frequently join us and have been here so often from when we started doing this, Geeti's mother passed away after a long illness. And so I'm going to offer up this prayer for the passage of her soul. O my God, verily thy servant, humble before the majesty of thy divine supremacy, lowly at the door of thy oneness, hath believed in thee and in thy verses, hath testified to thy word, hath been enkindled with the fire of thy love, hath been immersed in the depths of the ocean of thy knowledge, hath been attracted by thy breezes, hath relied upon thee, hath turned his face to thee, hath offered his supplications to thee, and hath been assured of thy pardon and forgiveness. He hath abandoned this mortal life and hath flown to the kingdom of immortality, yearning for the favor of meeting thee. O Lord, glorify his station. Shelter him under the pavilion of thy supreme mercy. Cause him to enter thy glorious paradise and perpetuate his existence in thine exalted rose garden, that he may plunge into the sea of light in the world of mysteries. Verily thou art the generous, the powerful, the forgiver, and the bestower.
Okay. This is that stage in the program where we like to tell everyone that this thing that we do every week is a multi-community effort that is primarily done through the auspices of the Clearwater Baha'i Center, but is joined by several communities in this area. And if you would like to know more about the Baha'i Faith, there are some definitive websites that you can go to find out, get more information. They are www.baha'i.us, www.baha'i.org. And if you happen to be in the Tampa Bay area and would like to know more, you can always go to the Clearwater website, which is www.clearwaterbaha'is.org.
Yes. Huh. Wow. Well, all that being said, Daryl, are you making any New Year's resolutions?
I am not.
Ah, boy. I am making one. Not to make any resolutions. That's my resolution.
All
You know,
right.
just keep trying to be the best human being we can be. And if anyone were to make any resolution, what do you think one of the resolutions should be on their list?
One of the resolutions they should make is that if you don't do anything else, the one thing that you can do that I guarantee you will improve your world is share the love.
Let's all resolve to do that. I think that's a good resolution that we can all work towards. And I think I do need to make one resolution.
What's that?
Trying to get everything queued up before it's time to do the song.
Turn the guitar down just a little bit.
And you think that's too loud?
Just a little.
O people of justice, be as brilliant as the light, and as splendid as the fire that blazed in the burning bush. The brightness of the fire of your love will no doubt fuse and unify the contending peoples and kindreds of the earth, whilst the fierceness of the flame of enmity and hatred cannot but result in strife and ruin. We beseech God that he may shield his creatures from the evil designs of his enemies. He verily hath power over all things. Let your vision be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Oh, oh. Be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Watch over yourselves, for the evil one is lying in wait, ready to entrap you. Gird yourselves against his wicked devices, and led by the light of the name of the all-seeing God, make your escape from the darkness that surrounded you. Let your vision be world-embracing, rather than confined to your own self. These are the words of Baha'u'llah. Be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Oh, oh. Have a good one, folks. Make it a good year.
Happy New Year.
Hopefully, we'll see you here again next week.